Hey guys, MK here. I'm just going to be doing a addendum to my original medic surfing tutorial / guide to bring in more advanced examples and topics, and to also talk about how I think when I'm playing medic. But first, this is the second edition of a video series I've been doing. Feel free to click on the video that's playing right now, or check the description for a link to watch this video. It goes over the basics of how to surf, such as A and D strafing, and also how to time a jump and be aware when you're playing medic. This video will only be going over advanced topics, as it assumes that you've already watched the first one. So we have a few topics of discussion that are all interrelated and all very important to understanding how I think about the game. The first is map knowledge. This is talking about, based on where I'm standing, what can I do? Asking the question of, if I'm in the air, where do I land? How do I land? Do I jump, crouch, walk away? Where do I rotate to? Stuff like that. Second is this topic called mindful surfing. It's a term that I've created to basically say you always must be aware when you're playing medic, similar to the first video, but it's also in terms of surfing about every single second you're in the air. If you were to strafe a certain way, how will your enemy aim? If you were to land at a certain spot, what will happen? And it's also a term to describe it if you were to not be mindful when you're surfing, then you'll most likely die. Third is keeping track and staying calm. This is broken up into two subsections, one specifically for counting the number of rockets a roamer or a pocket has loaded, and other examples, which also includes the first, but also mentions how to dodge at the damage, think about rotations, and to ultimately have a plan the entire time. Next, we're going to be talking about how to bring all these three topics together and to create a flow in how you move and how you think to help you be more aware and adaptable in the middle of a game. Lastly, we'll talk about what happens when you try to keep track of these three things and you don't do a good enough job. If you were to forget where you are on the map, if you were to not be mindful when you're surfing, or if you were to lose track of how many rockets a soldier has loaded, what will happen? So let's go into map knowledge. This is mostly talking about using your team's position to your advantage, choosing where to land during a surf based on where your team is, and also where you want your team to be. We'll also talk about making choices before you surf based on your position, and also talking about what's safe and what's unsafe, depending on your landing options. This first clip is of a chokehold after losing mid by my team. My demo traps off patio, but it ends up getting cleared by a soldier who's jumping me. A simple surf leads me into a position where I'm flying very high up in the air at a pretty fast speed, and I can see a rocket coming at my face, so that means that I'm able to have a choice. I can surf up to Spire if I have enough height, I can surf down to the middle health pack, surf onto bats, or down to gray in a circle. I figured that I'm high enough and I'm fast enough by now that I can surf up to Spire and be safe. And in this case I'm right, and I'm able to surf up on top of Spire and grab both health packs and stay alive. This next clip is of a 2-push into lobby from my team. As my pocket begins to push in lobby, one soldier jumps me. I hit a pretty decent surf and I end up having a choice. I can surf up onto balcony, down on the floor near the slope, or back to point. I end up choosing to go up top because I thought I had enough height, and I was right once again. This time it was a little bit close, but I ended up making it anyway, and my pocket actually wins the fight in lobby as well, so there's no loss there. This next clip is of an Uber push into last by my team. As the Uber fades, I see that a rocket lands past my face, which implies there's a soldier shooting me from behind. As I begin to spin my view around to see where he is, it's a soldier top right, and I hit this surf. At this low of health, I really only have two options. I can either surf to balcony or surf to shutter. Now, given the freeze frame, I've already decided to surf to balcony, but this is because I knew that surfing to shutter was not going to be safe. I can easily be spammed down by a rocket, and I knew that I couldn't be spammed down by a shotgun because the soldier wasn't running it. So surfing to balcony also leaves me having to surf over the pipes in the middle and backstrafe onto balcony itself. In the end, I end up choosing to surf to balcony. I hit the surf perfectly, and I'm given an escape route from this last push that fails due to this entry gun. This next clip is pretty simple, but it just displays how map knowledge is important. Surfing out of the crate actually leaves me to 0 angles of splash compared to the ground. Little things like that might end up saving your life. This next clip is the beginning of a mid-fight with my team. As my team begins to push to the right side, I see that two soldiers jump me. I'm able to hit a surf on one rocket, and I'm left with a few options. I can either surf up to the roof onto sewer, but I don't think I have enough height for that one. I can surf onto the rock and jump somewhere. I can surf onto the crate to my right and be closer to the enemy, which really isn't the best option. Or I can surf into a circle and land back where I started. I end up choosing to go to the rock mostly because I know that I have a lot of options there. I can jump off onto the roof, which is what I did. I can jump into sewer and get the pack, or I can jump straight back around to where the soldiers might be and hope that my team cleans them up. Jumping onto the roof also leaves me to be able to scan around and see what's going on. I was able to spin all the way around and see that my team did clean up the soldiers, and I was able to also see there was nobody on our pack trying to shoot me. This next clip is of a mid-push by my team. As I begin to back up and try to catch my spawners for heals, I see that a soldier jumps me. Now the timing on the rocket's a bit of a guess, but in hitting it I'm actually left with a few options. Given by my health and my height, I really only have 4 options here. I can surf onto the right side on the wood, I can surf to my big door, I can surf to the left on the roof of the shack, or I can surf in a big circle and basically come back to where I started. I chose to surf onto the right side of the wood mostly because I knew that I could adapt halfway through the surf. I know that I could have also chosen big door, but ultimately I wanted to stay close to my team and hopefully have some support, assuming that the soldier didn't die. So let's move on to mindful surfing. This is mostly talking about listening to your teammates' calls the entire game, and also adapting to your own surfs halfway through, and having options open, and choosing which one to go with. This first clip is a simple illustration of why you should always be acting upon your team's calls. As I begin to go to big door, a teammate calls that a soldier jumping me. I quickly turn around and I have to immediately jump, crouch, and surf somewhere. Now the soldier already got picked off, so I don't have to worry about picking my landing option. I just have to go somewhere. Realistically, I think I would have been dead if I hadn't actually listened to my teammates' calls and done something about it. This next clip is a 4-man sack wave hold by my team on Viaduct. As I try to catch my demo for some heals and back up myself, I see that a soldier jumps me. Now, the actual surf is a little bit weird too, because I didn't know where the soldier was jumping from as I was flailing my view around, but I hit this surf anyway, and I'm left with a few options. I can either surf onto China, really close to me. My health already favors this. I can surf onto the cliff on the right, which is good if I was to have more speed. Or I can surf onto the lower part of the cliff and hope I don't die. Now, I end up choosing to go for the cliff surf mostly because I knew that by the time I was going to fall down, I would have had enough regen to either not die, or to hit the edge like I did and get the health back safely. It's also important to note that halfway through that surf, I actually did try to go to the top side of the cliff as well, but I was able to adapt quickly and see that I could actually not make the top surf and surf down to the corner and not die. This next clip will be broken down into many parts. Now, it's important to note that no one has seen the soldier up top, not even me. I haven't seen the soldier up until my view turns up right about now. As I begin to dodge the second rocket and hit a surf on the third, I'm waiting to see where the fourth will go. I really only have 2 options here. I can either surf up to the top of the rock and hope I don't get directed, or I can surf onto the ground and hope I don't get splashed. I ultimately choose to go up on the top of the rock in hopes that the upper direct's a little bit too hard to hit for the soldier, and it works. Crouching there is actually a big help because I think that even if the rocket was aimed a little bit higher, crouching would have saved my life either way. I'm going to play this next clip at full speed just to show that you can use splash damage not just from the ground but also from the walls to get out of a situation. Even if it may look like you're just spamming spacebar, knowing where splash is going, even on the walls, is very important. This next clip is of a post-mid hold from my team. As I begin to try to heal up my scouts on the point, I see that a soldier jumps me from above. Now, the important part about the surf is that jumping off the rock actually leaves me open to pretty much no splash. As I'm jumping over the rock, I'm going below the incline where I could be splashed. This means that not only do I not die, but I can also see where everything is headed. So in this case, I was able to turn around in the air and see the soldier while still keeping control of my air strafing. This next clip is of a retreat from 2 by my team. As I begin to back up to the right side, I see that a soldier tries to flank me from drop down. Now it's important to note that surfing onto his head is pretty much my only option here. I can either surf onto his head, or hope I don't get splashed on the ground or the wall. Also, surfing onto his head leaves me to less damage due to the soldier having self-damage before any damage is given to me. I was about 80 health here, and I knew that if I surfed onto his head and he shot pretty much anywhere besides straight down, I would have lived due to that self-damage. I would have taken maybe 90 damage otherwise. So let's go into our first section of trying to keep track of everything, which is just your rockets loaded. This is mostly talking about keeping track of the rockets an enemy soldier has loaded in order to get an idea of when they're going to shoot me for a surf. This will be useful for when trying to dodge spam into a choke, or trying to predict a bomb, or a format sack and viaduct, or something like that. Every clip here will be using a small soldier rocket icon to count how many rockets are being shot. It'll be in the bottom left corner, and it'll give you an idea of how many rockets I've counted in my head during the clip. So this first clip's going to be a push through drop down on Gully Wash. I'm going to slow the clip down for each rocket to give you guys an idea of what's going on in my head. So the first rocket comes through to catch my pocket out of the choke. The second one is a simple spam to catch it direct on my pocket again, simple dodge. Third one comes out to try to catch my demo, and now at this point I know that the fourth one is going to be shot at the fastest interval possible. This means that because the way my pocket and demo were juggled, I knew that I could be shot pretty easily, but surfing up top is the only option here, assuming that I didn't want to pop. It's important to note that surfing up top was my choice, and ultimately if my demo and pocket had died, it would have been all my fault. This next clip is going to be played at mostly full speed without any pauses to give you guys an idea of how counting the rockets is important. Most of these rockets are heard by sound, but let's go through each one. So the first rocket is heard from it being missed by a teammate not hitting me. I get hit by the second and surf to the pack on Cafe. The third one I hear from the soldier jumping me. The fourth is shot and missed by a simple stray fake out, and the fifth has to be shot at the fastest interval just because he's trying to get damage. That soldier knows that I'm hurt because of the pack, so I know that I can hit a surf and hopefully get out. A simple strafe over the fence keeps me alive and helps me rotate out back to flank. This next clip will also be played at full speed. Things happen very quick in this one, so we'll slow it down when things get interesting. So I hear the first rocket from the rocket jump from the soldier. The second one tries to hit me, the third and the fourth both try to hit my demo. Now at this point, I know that the soldier's going to try to reload his rockets and shoot as fast as he can to get the most damage. This is really my time to dodge one rocket at a time and really slow it down. The fifth one's a simple jump over the rocket, and the sixth one is a simple timing, knowing that the soldier wants to shoot at the fastest interval. Letting me hit that surf was all because he held down mouse 1 at the same interval that he did before, so I was able to get the timing down. Surfing onto the little metal sheeting saves my life, and even lets me dodge the seventh rocket that the soldier was trying to shoot to get me to die. Despite the soldier could have easily just hit a wall splash, assuming that he didn't miss that seventh rocket, the concept of the surf is what's important. This next clip will be played at mostly full speed. As I begin to push into lower, I check the hider on the catwalk, but I don't see anybody. Immediately after I spin around, I get spammed with a rocket. I also get hit by a random direct that I was trying to dodge, and I see the third rocket flying out of the rocket launcher from far away. And so now the 1v1 begins. I know that by the time I get to the pack and pick it up, the soldier's already been able to reload a rocket. Because he jumped, I know that he's going to shoot that last one at the fastest interval possible, leaving me open to be able to surf it out towards Cheese. Luckily, I also knew that a spawner was coming from Cheese, so I knew that I could surf there and be safe afterwards. This next clip is pretty simple as well, but it just goes to show that a post-surf position is pretty important in understanding what your options are when you're trying to surf out of a situation. As I begin to give heals to my scouts on a point, I see that a soldier jumps us from bats. Now it's important to note that the first surf isn't that important, but the post-surf position is. Now, at this point, I'm doing a couple mistakes. I'm first off noticing that I've left a line between the soldier and I, but not between my team and I. In this case, the shack is blocking my team from trying to help me, so I'm pretty much on my own for this few seconds that I'm being chased by the soldier. It's also important to note that at this point in the still frame, I know the soldier only has one rocket left loaded. That means he has to shoot it either right now at the still frame, or when he lands, or sometime in between. This means that I can generally gauge when he's going to be able to shoot it, and I can surf onto the roof, onto the fence, or somewhere else depending on the angle and the speed of the surf that I hit. Now, knowing this, I'm also able to surf up onto the shack, and then know that based on my height, he actually has time to shoot one more rocket before my team is able to clean him up. And in knowing that, I'm able to strafe out the air shot attempt, and also not take fall damage from the shack. It's possible that if I was to take that fall damage, I could have been chip-shotted and dropped from a scout that came in during the bomb, or a sticky from the demo or something like that. But luckily the no fall damage really helps and keeps me alive just in case. Now that we've talked about being able to count rockets when you're playing medic, let's talk about other small things that can help you survive in some games. Most of these clips are pretty specific to that situation, so we'll talk about them on their own. This first clip is a retreat from mid by my team. As it's just my demo and I at choke, I see that a soldier and a scout run through patio to kill my demo and I. It's important to note that by the time my demo dies, I've already started surfing, and I know that those two will only be shooting me now. I hit the first surf, and I end up catching the second rocket by just jumping right away, and I hear the third rocket from really far away, which means the soldier either jumped me or shot to try to spam me. The scout's pistoling me down, so I know that I'm hurt and I have to jump, just in case that last rocket was a spam rocket and not a jump. And in this case I was right, and I ended up staying alive, getting to forward, and be able to backspawn safely. This next clip is of a hold on 2 by my team. As I begin to back up the shutter, I see that one soldier jumps me, but I hear a second. By the time I see the first one, I actually see the second one double bombing as well. Now, the first soldier is there just to fake me out and make me focus on him. And so my head focuses on the second soldier and what he's trying to do. He ends up landing on a point and trying to shoot me, leaving me up into a surfed lobby and being safe. Being able to keep track of both soldiers is something that might be tough for new medics, but it's really important to know. This next clip is of an attempted 2-push by my team. As I begin to try to catch my scouts in my demo over heels, I see that the soldier jumps us. I end up surfing under the little metal part of the point, and I end up rotating to our big door. As I'm able to see that I'm not getting chased, I think that my escape to big door is free. I hear a soldier come out, throw another drop down, and try to jump me. A simple time surf gets me down to 1 HP to be able to surf to the packing lobby and not die. I ended up not going to the small pill because I knew that I could get splashed from the wall. Hitting a splash on the ground there was a little bit harder for the soldier, and in knowing that, I'm able to take the pack for free. This next clip is a repush to 2 by my team. As I see that my pocket goes to spire to cap, and my scout does in the flank, I see that a demo charges me. Now it's important to note that this guy's running loose cannon, so I know that it's really easy to be double donked. At this range, at this health, I can easily be double donked and die in about 2 seconds. So I try to surf something, and I end up surfing perfectly down to the timing of my jump and the direction of my jump. I actually caught the loose cannon at the perfect angle to where I still had momentum as I was going up. Simple airstrafe control lets me land on the rail and not get sorted down by the demo. Even if the surf was a little bit lucky in terms of the direction of the jump, being able to adapt halfway through is the concept. This next clip is going to be played at mostly full speed, and it's the ends of a mid-fight. As I begin to stay on the enemy's train, I see that an enemy soldier jumps from our train to me. Now it's important to note that the first surf was actually not that great, but the adaptation in the middle was to throw the soldier's aim off. He misses a big flick on the right, and has to turn his aim to his left to try to shoot me again. Given my height advantage, I'm actually able to dodge a direct pretty easily, but I have to stay on top of the train to be able to do it. I had to stop my momentum halfway through the strafe in the middle of the air to be able to not get directed or air shot. Next, we'll talk about bringing all these 3 topics together and to create a flow of thought and action when you're playing medic. I won't be showing the rocket icon this time, so as to test you to see how many rockets the soldier has loaded. This first clip shows a good example of combining all the efforts of positional calculation, Uber tracking, and rockets loaded to avoid a bomb and stay alive. As I begin to hear a call that the med is weak and try to throw a crossbow, I hear a soldier jump me from behind in sewer, and I hit the first surf and I hit the top point. At this point, I know that the soldier wants to keep shooting me because he knows that I'm weak. I took 100 damage at least in his head, and I know that I can get the pill as long as I jump down at the right time. Luckily, this idea works and I'm able to grab the pill for free and jump away at the right time to where his last rocket to try to shoot me doesn't do enough damage to kill me. Ultimately, I end up staying alive with the help of my team and keep the Uber alive for the last push. Being able to keep track of the soldier's rockets loaded and how much damage he thought that I took is really important to understanding how I got away with the situation. This next clip will be mostly showing how you can use health packs to your advantage. You can use them to take an extra rocket, or to simply use them as bait to get another surf and to end up in a safer landing spot. This next clip is mostly going to be showing how you can use your movement to bait out surfs similar to health packs. Using your movement on the ground to be able to influence where the soldier's going to aim ultimately influences when and where he's going to shoot you as well. This helps you time your surfs better and also plan your escapes better. This next clip will be talking about the things mentioned in mindful surfing. In this case, I'm going to be using my teammates' models and where they're aiming to understand what's going on behind me. Even though this is a pretty simple example, it's important to note that surfing out of the crate there was not very safe due to the scout being on my demo, and I could have used it when splashed by the soldier if he hadn't been cleaned up fast enough. And lastly, we'll talk about where it can all go wrong. This is mostly talking about if you were to miscount the number of rockets loaded or not pay attention to fall damage or a flank from a scout or a demo or something, that you could easily die, and learning from those mistakes and understanding why you made that mistake is important. This first clip is of an attempted push onto the left side of viaduct by my team. It's important to note that during this surf, it's great that I hit the surf and strafe around the corner really tightly, and I'm able to scan around and see what's going on, but the choice to jump into main after hitting that surf is not very smart. I end up ditching my team, and I end up having my demo myself die when I could have maybe gotten out to the left side, which would have been a bit safer. Having me fight that scout main, even just to surf the meat shot to get there, was not smart. The mistake there was mostly staying with my team, and while scanning and the surf was cool, the choice to go to main by myself was not smart. This next clip is the beginning of a mid-fight with my team. As I begin to try to get heals to my demo and he goes to get the pack, I try to be forward with my heals and go outside, but in doing so, I get jumped by both soldiers. And while the surf is cool and landing on the middle sheeting is nice, the post-surf rotate is not very good. Going to the truck because of my health was an okay choice in hindsight, but looking back on it now, it's the worst thing I could have done. Just because my roamer dies doesn't mean that this is a bad option as well. It's more about if I was to go on top of the shack and then jump onto the metal sheeting there and go into lobby, or even just jump down and go back to alley and get the pack, I'm leaving myself to less options to be able to be flanked or to die in general. Going to the truck leaves me open to the most spam and the most avenues to die, mostly because of how open mid is. Alley's open as well, but because I know where both soldiers are, I don't have to worry about rockets. I have to worry about scouts and demos here. Ultimately, understanding where you want to go after a surf is super important. A simple mistake like this ends up costing me my life and my team in the mid, as well as our 2. Because I died so late, we wouldn't be able to hold 2 and we'd have to give it up for free, leaving us to possibly lose the round due to a last push. This next clip will be showing how a post-surf rotate is important and it can be useful, but if you don't have your team to support you after the surf, it's pretty much useless. As I begin to push in onto the point past forward, I see that a soldier walks out of it. Now the first surf landing onto the fence is a smart idea, and being able to fake out my position by going onto train and then rotating onto the stairs is pretty smart, and while the timing of the second surf is nice, the choice to go to the pack is not very smart. Landing back on the pack leaves me open to a lot of spam. This is the big mistake. I probably could have also strafed onto that crate next to the shack if I was to strafe a little bit tighter, but my thought was to stay near my team and give back to the point for the pack. Unluckily somebody took it, and so now I'm stuck with it not being there for about 7 or 8 seconds. What this means is that I'm open to spam the entire time that the pack is not there, and because the soldier never got cleaned up by any of my teammates, I'm left to die because of it. So now that we've gone over all the topics, I'll do a quick summary just like the first video. This will be good for those of you who haven't watched the video as well, just to get something to take away from it. Just to note that most of these points are pretty self-explanatory, so you should probably watch the video again if you don't understand something. So let's go on to our first point, which is to always be aware of where you are on the map, and to understand the height of your surf to make choices. It's important to understand that the choice you make when you surf is super important. The factors that make you make that choice is based on your height, speed, health, and where your team is positioned as well. Knowing where you want to go post-surf is super important, and making a bad rotate could end up costing your life. Just as a general point, you should always use your map knowledge to your advantage. This brings in other topics like using health packs to bait out a surf, or to be able to bait out a rocket for a surf, and to also use your teammates' positions and hold positions to understand where to surf to. This idea brings me up to my next point, which is to keep track of everything at all times, which includes rockets loaded, your team and the enemy team's position, and where everyone is aiming. These are just some suggestions for keeping track of things, but basic things like Uber tracking, health pack spawns, stuff like that are kind of assumed, and so these are things that can be easily overlooked, but should be focused on when you're playing Medic. And for the last point is to always accept and learn from your mistakes. You should not be playing selfishly. This is one that no one really ever truly gets to be the best at, and it's never something that's truly fixed. It's always something to do, there's always something to improve on, but being able to accept your faults and understand when it was your fault in a situation, especially if it's things with Uber drops, being able to understand that's really important. Being able to accept them is one thing, but learning from them is a second. If you're able to at least understand why you're wrong and accept it, then learning from it's even easier. So I just want to say thanks for watching, guys, especially if you watched the video all the way through. Feel free to read the description for any shoutouts, details, and other information. But otherwise, take care, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video.